Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are totally transforming you into a motion text expert with our 2026 Masterclass on kinetic typography. Whether you're a seasoned designer or honestly just someone who wants their social media post to really pop, you are in the right place. This explainer is absolutely packed with the practical tips and tricks you need to make your words literally leap off the screen. Now, I want you to just stop for a second and think about the text you're reading right now, today. Are your words just sitting still? Because let's face it, in a fast-scrolling, high-speed digital world, static text is incredibly easy to ignore. If you're still relying on static logos and motionless text to try and grab someone's attention, well, you're fighting a losing battle. And here is the harsh reality of exactly why that is. 1.7 seconds. That is the average attention span on social media before a user scrolls right past your content. You have less than 2 seconds to earn their attention. That creates a pretty urgent need for the exact kinetic typography tricks we're going to cover today. So, here's the game plan for our masterclass. First, we'll cover why motion text wins, then core design principles, followed by step-by-step animation tricks. Next, we'll go over avoiding common beginner mistakes and wrap up with next-gen tools and trends. Section 1, Why Motion Text Wins, the Science of Attention. Let's anchor this with a clear definition, right? Kinetic typography is the art of animating text so that the motion itself reinforces the meaning of the words. It's not just moving things around for the sake of being flashy, it actually expresses ideas and enhances storytelling. And the science totally backs this up. Our human visual cortex is hardwired to prioritize movement. So when text moves, it triggers this involuntary orientation response in our brains. We literally can't ignore it. And this brilliantly illustrates why this matters so much for your bottom line. When you put static text up against animated text, it's no contest. Viewers retain only about 10% of a static message, but that jumps to a massive 95% retention rate for video and motion. Plus, A/B testing shows that swapping out static headers for kinetic value propositions boosts e-commerce conversions by 23 to 41%. That is huge. But hey, you can't just throw text at the screen at lightning speed. Studies in cognitive psychology give us a really neat science-backed trick. The sweet spot for processing kinetic type is 60 to 80 words per minute. If you move too slowly, your viewer gets bored and bails. If you animate way too quickly, you just overwhelm them and they miss the whole point. This is perfectly validated by an academic study on temporal typography, which points out that fluid, well-timed motions actually enhance readability and make the information easier to follow. Basically, the motion shouldn't just be flashy or random. It has to be purposeful, smoothly guiding the viewer's eye exactly where you want it to go.
Moving right along to Section 2, Core Design Principles, the Foundations of Motion.
We can actually tie these professional motion principles right back to educational frameworks, like the CTE Communications Technology Standard 11.01. That standard emphasizes really getting the elements and principles of design. To make text move well, you've got to master timing and rhythm, easing in natural motion, establishing a clear hierarchy of messaging, and again, I can't stress this enough, prioritizing purposeful motion over just throwing on some flashy effects. Now, what's really interesting about this next concept is interpolation. This right here is the secret sauce. It's what transforms robotic, stiff movement into natural human motion. By mathematically calculating the data between two keyframes, interpolation controls how an object accelerates or decelerates. It gives your typography a sense of real-world physics, making it feel grounded.
To actually control that interpolation, you're going to use easing curves. Think of this as your highly actionable cheat sheet for hacking the emotion of a specific word. Need an energetic, snappy entrance? Use an ease out. Want a smooth, fading exit? Go with an ease in. For really polished, continuous motion, an ease in-out is your best friend. And if you have a bouncy, impactful word, you definitely want to throw an overshoot curve on it.
Okay, Section 3, Animation Tricks, a step-by-step workflow. So here is that distilled 6-step workflow I promised. Notice how steps 1 and 2 are scripting and storyboarding? Yeah, jumping straight into your software without sketching out your key moments on paper is just a recipe for disaster. Only after you storyboard do you move to step 3 and pick your fonts. Then, for step 4, you build your composition out in individual layers. Step 5 is absolutely crucial. Time those layers directly to your audio. And finally, step 6 is export and optimize. Let's rattle off some rapid-fire execution tricks you can start using right this second. First, put one word per text layer. This gives you total control. Second, hold a word for a minimum of 12 frames at 30 frames per second so people actually have time to read it. Third, always hit the beat of your audio. Fourth, rely on bold, condensed sans serif fonts. Think Beboss Noah, Anton, or Montserrat Black. They read so clearly even when moving at blazingly fast speeds. And lastly, always lead by animating your hook word. Now let's talk about the final output because look, all your hard work is completely wasted if you export it incorrectly. Here are the exact specs you need for 2026 platforms. For vertical platforms like Instagram Reels and TikTok, you want a 1080 by 1920 MP4 hitting 30 frames per second. But for web loops, you really want to look into WebM or Lottie files to keep those file sizes tiny while maintaining transparency. All right, section 4, avoiding mistakes, what not to do. Let's look at the direct contrast between how an amateur works versus a pro. An amateur uses rigid, robotic, linear motion. A pro uses easing curves. Seriously, just selecting your keyframes and pressing F9 in After Effects works absolute wonders. An amateur tries to use thin, heavily decorated script fonts that completely blur when moving. A pro, they stick to bold sans serifs. And honestly, the biggest tell, an amateur over-animates every single word, while a pro uses calm, purposeful hold to create real visual contrast. So, the crucial point is this. The motion must always serve the words, not the other way around. Don't use a million different fonts, stick to one or two for visual cohesion, don't ignore the audio rhythm. Even if your final video is going to be muted by the user, it needs a strong internal visual beat. And please, whatever you do, don't forget accessibility. Excessive motion can actually trigger vestibular disorders for a lot of people, so it is super important to always offer reduced motion options for your web implementations. Finally, Section 5. Tools and Trends, the future of motion. So while Adobe After Effects and Cinema 4D definitely remain the undisputed industry standards for professional, precise keyframing, the barrier to entry has honestly never been lower. Browser-based tools like Jitter and Rive are absolutely amazing for beginners. But the real game changers right now in 2026 are AI tools. Platforms like Runway, Pika, and specifically Sleepy Motion allow for prompt-to-motion graphics. You can literally generate kinetic typography from text prompts in minutes. It's wild. And what exactly are people creating with these tools? Well, here are the major 2026 trends you need to watch. Variable font animation is absolutely huge right now. It allows designers to fluidly transition a font's weight, width, and slant all within a single typeface. We're also seeing a ton of interactive kinetic type that actually responds to a user's mouse movements, which totally blurs the line between motion graphics and web development. And finally, seamlessly integrating 3D text into traditional 2D workflows is adding some incredible depth to everyday videos. Which brings us to our final provocative thought. You've got the tools, you've got the step-by-step workflow, and you now understand the cognitive science of why all of this actually works. So, in a world moving this fast, are you going to let your words sit still? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. I hope you're excited to open up your software and start animating.